China's missile test exposed divisions among Pacific Island nations, with several governments avoiding direct criticism of Beijing. As tensions rose between China and the Philippines, Pacific states voiced concern but stopped short of issuing a united response against Beijing. China's long-range missile launch highlighted the lack of a coordinated Pacific response despite growing regional security concerns. The latest missile test underscored the challenge facing the U.S. and its allies in building a united front among Pacific Island nations. Beijing's missile launch intensified regional anxiety, but Pacific governments largely avoided publicly confronting China over the test. China's missile test near Tuvalu has exposed growing divisions among Pacific Island nations over how to respond to Beijing's expanding military presence, according to reports. Beijing said the July 6 submarine-launched missile test was part of routine annual military training conducted in accordance with international law. China also said the missile carried a dummy warhead, adding that the launch was not directed against any country or specific military target. Reports said the missile landed near the exclusive economic zones of Tuvalu and Kiribati, raising concerns among several Pacific governments. Tuvalu, Palau, and the Solomon Islands publicly criticized the launch, saying it heightened security concerns across the Pacific region. However, the Pacific Islands Forum failed to agree on a joint statement during talks in Fiji, exposing differences within the regional bloc. Analysts said member states' varying diplomatic and economic relationships with China made it difficult to forge a unified response. Papua New Guinea later softened its initial criticism and reaffirmed its commitment to the One China policy, drawing further attention to regional divisions. Analysts said differing historical experiences, security priorities, and economic interests continue to shape each Pacific nation's approach toward China. China's Coast Guard accused Philippine personnel of deliberately ramming one of its patrol boats near Renari Jiao during a confrontation on July 20th. The CCG said two rubber boats launched from the Philippine vessel LT-57 rapidly approached its patrol craft despite repeated warnings to keep their distance. Beijing claimed the Philippine boats intentionally rammed the Chinese patrol vessel while it was carrying out what it described as routine maritime law enforcement operations. The CCG also alleged that Philippine personnel assaulted Chinese law enforcement officers using oars and long poles during the confrontation at sea. China said its crews responded with repeated warnings, evasive maneuvers, and what it described as proportionate countermeasures to control the situation. The CCG maintained that its personnel exercised maximum restraint throughout the incident while acting in accordance with Chinese maritime law. Beijing accused Manila of distorting the facts and making false claims in the aftermath of the confrontation near the disputed shoal. China's Coast Guard rejected the Philippine allegations, calling them a complete reversal of the facts surrounding the maritime incident. Earlier, the Philippine government said Chinese Coast Guard personnel struck a Philippine sailor with a wooden baton during the same confrontation. China and the Philippines traded blame after confrontation at Second Thomas Shoal on July 20th, further escalating tensions in the disputed South China Sea. Manila said Chinese Coast Guard personnel struck a Philippine sailor with a wooden baton during the maritime confrontation. Philippine officials said the incident occurred as their vessels attempted to drive away a Chinese ship operating near the disputed shoal. Video released by Manila appeared to show a Chinese crew member striking a Philippine sailor during the encounter at sea. However, Beijing accused the Philippines of provoking the confrontation, claiming Manila initiated the disputed maritime operation. The U.S. State Department condemned what it described as China's dangerous and aggressive actions during the latest confrontation. Statement by U.S. Department of State said, and I quote, "The United States condemns China's dangerous and aggressive actions against Philippine Navy personnel at Second Thomas Shoal in the South China Sea on July 20, 2026, and calls on China to immediately cease its destabilizing conduct. China's troubling pattern of provocation against lawful Philippine maritime operations undermines regional peace and stability, and directly contradicts China's repeated commitments to resolve disputes peacefully. We stand with our ally, the Philippines, and commend the professionalism and restraint shown by Philippine Navy personnel in this incident. We reaffirm the July 2016 Arbitral Tribunal ruling, which found that China's expansive maritime claims in the South China Sea have no basis in international law. That decision is final and legally binding on both China and the Philippines. We will continue to stand with our allies and partners in defense of a free and open Indo-Pacific." Unquote. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived in Manila as ASEAN foreign ministers gathered for a new round of regional security and diplomatic talks. Rubio's visit came amid sharply rising tensions following the latest confrontation between Chinese and Philippine forces at 2nd Thomas Shoal. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi is also expected to arrive in Manila later this week to participate in the ASEAN ministerial meetings.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Have you ever wondered what happens when a banking dynasty meets tides of world history, intrigue, and a dash of myth?
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.